I'm Justin Snyder.
And I'm Stephanie Greenwood Snyder.
We're just an average, everyday couple.
But over the years, we've seen the incredible importance of building community together.
We'll be talking with friends and experts about their stories and experiences to help us learn and grow.
We don't want to just survive through life.
We want to intentionally thrive.
This is The Intentional Thriver.
Well, welcome everyone to The Intentional Thriver. We are so honored today to have two guests with us, Aaron and Janay Honeycutt. Hello, Honeycutts. How are you?
Okay.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we haven't known you guys a super long time. We met you when we moved to Atlanta last year. But we've been able to hang out some through small group, and Aaron and you and I got to hang out at 4th of July last year and kind of chat and get to know each other. But we always like to start off by saying something that we kind of respect and admire about our guests. And, you know, even though we haven't known you guys that long, one thing that I really appreciate about you guys is you guys are very busy people, like very busy people. Just Aaron with your job obviously being involved, very involved. Janay, you teaching and volunteering a lot and all of these things. I don't know how you guys fit it all in a 24-hour day. So kudos on that. But despite that very, very packed schedule and 3 kids and everything like that, it seems like you guys really do a good job finding what is the priority in your lives and prioritizing each other in your marriage and things like that. So I really respect that about you guys and admire that. We're going to talk more about that because man, how do you do it all?
Yeah.
You know,
very impressive.
Anything to add to that stuff?
Well, I just have to say, Janay, you just look beautiful every single time I see you, and you handle yourself with such grace.
I mean, you're beautiful too, Aaron.
Yeah. And your daughters are beautiful and your son is amazing. And I'm always amazed whenever I see you, how people just come to you for support and encouragement and guidance and advice. And it's just fun to be doing life with you guys, because I feel like you are just a couple steps ahead of us, and we're just so blessed to have you.
Well, I'd say more than a couple. Well, not in terms of age or anything, but just in terms of knowledge and wisdom. So we are going to be asking a lot of questions.
Please.
So buckle up. But right off the bat, for people who don't know you guys, can you tell a little bit about your backgrounds and your story and just, who you are and kind of where you've come from?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Aaron Honeycutt Sr. I pretty much lived in the South my whole life. I was raised in the church, gave my life to Jesus at an early age, like elementary age. And just from there, just always had an affinity for just Jesus and people and hard work and things of that nature. Found myself in healthcare, and that's where I currently work. I'm a physical therapist by trade, and that's pretty much my mainstay job. My part-time job that I'm growing in / full-time job is assisting with homeschooling Janay and our 3 kids. We have an 11-year-old daughter, Noreen. We have a 9-year-old son, Aaron II, and we have a 7-year-old daughter, Naomi Grace. So that's pretty much me.
Nice.
And then how about you, Janay?
Okay. So I was born in Chicago, and I spent a little bit of my childhood there. We moved to Georgia by the time I was 9, and I've been here ever since. I did not grow up in the church. I grew up what you would consider to be unchurched. And so I would say, I guess I was about 19 when I met Aaron
Wow.
in college, and we dated and fell in love and got married, and we started our family. I was actually in college pursuing a degree in education, and so we talked about homeschooling. And so that was something that I felt that I could do. I really did enjoy the idea of being home and staying home and caring for my husband and our family as it grew. But over that time of spending time with Aaron and developing and growing our family, I just fell in love with Jesus. I just learned about him. The gospel was presented to me in a very, very attractive way. And I was drawn to who Jesus was. I mean, his character and his personality. And from that moment, I felt like, okay, I have someone who sees me and someone who can help me navigate what he created, marriage and family and being a keeper of the home. And so I just, to the best of my ability, with his grace, try to live my days growing and learning. And my goal is to be a lifelong learner and just never stay the same, just as he transforms me. So, yeah.
Oh, that's
That's
good.
me.
A lifelong learner.
And you love reading, and I love
Yes.
how intentional you are sometimes to go and have some quiet time as an introvert to recharge and to write, right? And to
Yeah, so important. It's so important.
It's awesome. And that's a commitment to do with 3 kids. So kudos to both of you, Aaron to support and Janay to communicate that need. So
Yeah.
it's something I'm working on, right?
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So with so much going on in your lives, I mean, homeschooling, I was homeschooled my entire life. I know it can be all consuming. I just love that you're doing it together and that your kids get to have that well-rounded education. But how do you work together to create the order of priorities in your life?
Well, we really try to start from just a foundational thing, setting priorities based off of our values. And so it starts with the marital covenant first. From those priorities, obviously, before that is your own personal relationship with Jesus and time with God.
Right.
So that being said, after that, for us, it's the marriage. Like we're making sure that that's solid, making sure that our values are set, the mission and the vision that we have for our unique marriage. That's kind of what we hang off every decisions, and the kids and everything comes after that, and not putting the kids' needs and wants and desires, or even what we feel like the kids need, over the marital covenant, because this is forever until it's eternal, and then it's not. Whereas the kids will eventually transition them on to adulthood, and so we have to make sure that this is where home is, and that we have a friendship and a loving romantic relationship. And so we set those priorities. We created something called the One Document, which kind of outlines just different scriptures that speak to us uniquely, just different character traits and values that we want to exhibit throughout the arc of our marriage, as well as the goals that we have, and trying to continue to check back with that document and with the values. And so, in short, like priorities for us, it has to come from obviously the personal relationship with God and lining our thoughts and our processes and our decisions up with the scripture. And then right after that is, practically speaking, well, how does that flesh out on the day to day? And how does that flesh out for 2 unique people working to become one? And then carry that out, and then hold ourselves accountable to, I missed that. I didn't do exactly what I needed to do for Janay, and Janay being able to say, I got to get back to what I committed to do for Aaron unto God. So
Wow.
I think that idea of like
amazing.
oneness is so critical, and there's a balance of that too. You know, we love the word balance on this podcast,
absolutely.
but that idea of oneness, where, because people change over the year, like, and we should change, we should grow, we should, like you were saying, Janay, be a constant eternal learner. And as like 2 individual people change and, you know, grow, if that oneness isn't there, if you're not changing and growing together, you can kind of realize one day, hey, we're actually kind of growing and changing in different directions, as opposed to like as one unit coming together and being even more of a strong team, being even more of a life partner, and just doing life together. And Aaron, I love what you were saying about like, how does that flesh out? What's the application of, you know, hey, this is the big idea, these are the priorities that we have, but how does that practically flush out in like day-to-day living? And I love like
Yeah.
the document and this stuff. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Of like, what are some practical ways that you guys have been able to really prioritize your marriage, your relationship, whether that be through time, dates? Like, what does that look
Yeah.
like for you guys?
So that was something that I would love to contribute to the discussion.
Please do, Janay.
I am a planner, and so practically what that looks like is like mid October, probably getting close to November, I start with a notebook and thinking about the upcoming year and reflecting on some goals for the next year. And I try to be very mindful of what I feel God is doing in my heart, and what He could potentially be ushering me into for the next year. Just being available, just opening my hands to say, okay, this is a busy season for most people, but let me just really sit down and understand that January is coming. I know that in October. And so that's when I start setting my intention towards just listening a bit more, and kind of drowning out the noise of the holiday season, and trying to see what's going on or what could be, what could the Lord be doing for me. And with that comes being intentional about buying those planners and I love getting new planners
Yeah.
and setting dates before the year even comes, and being intentional about, okay, this is the day we need to break away for a conference together, or this is the day where it would be nice if we went on a family vacation, or if we went on a vacation for just Aaron and I, like just really sitting down and putting those dates to a planner before the year comes, being
Wow.
proactive, not reacting to, oh, okay, we haven't had a vacation this year. What are we going to do? Where are we going to go? And I feel like when we do things, like when we intentionally plan, we still leave room for flexibility. Like we
Sure.
know something may come in the year that we did not plan for that actually needs to take priority. But when you go into seasons with a plan, right, you've submitted that to God and you've asked Him to help you in the planning process, and you allow Him to be sovereign in that year. And so that's one of the things I love to do from an annual perspective. Now, then the way my brain works is it's annual, and then it's the quarterly, the seasonal things, and then
Sure.
we get into like the weekly, day-to-day, weekly, and then day-to-day stuff.
Okay.
And so, with what that looks like with the family and the day-to-day things is like Aaron was talking about with those priorities. If they are priorities and if they are values, then how can we create rhythms in our home to where no one even ever has to see our one document to see what is important to
Wow.
us?
Yeah.
Because we're modeling it through daily, devotions with the kids, or activities where we're exercising together, or we're making sure that, oh, it's the end of the school year, the Honeycutts go camping. Like, it's one of those things that we try to the best of our abilities live to where you never even have to look at a book or a paper or anything to see what we live, who we lived for, and why we lived our lives. You could just see it in how we carried ourselves throughout the year and even day to day. So yeah.
That's awesome.
So good.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we're done. I
I
think that
know.
just drop the mic,
That's
Janay.
amazing.
No, that's great.
Yeah, if only it was that good and pristine.
I
It's
mean,
nice.
we're
As you guys know,
human.
Yeah.
Janae's she's a godsend. She's the one that really pushes that and makes that happen here, especially these past couple of years. She's very special in how she encourages me to stop and smell the roses. I tend to want to pick them and sell them. So
You need them
that
both.
works. That works until you get burned out,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you have all this experience or some level of a couple of dollars in your pockets, but you really don't have that kind of those memories. And Janae's very good about creating those memories. And so typical dates for us with our kids at this age, we'll stay in the house, watch movies. We're fortunate enough to be able to like go down the street and leave them for a short period of time. If we're going to go somewhere like further downtown or for a longer period of time, we'll get a sitter.
Sure.
We try to be as intentional as possible as not to be parents when we're not around the kids, meaning how we dress, the conversations we have, the things that we're open to experiencing. Yes, we're responsible. We know that we're parents, but we never want that to be our identity. and we can't do that because we have kids.
That's
Like
good.
that's
Yeah.
well, then what happens when they leave? Like, so all of a
Yeah.
sudden we're able to now do this. Like, no, let's find that way to be able to do those things. But it's really Janay. She has great ideas. She's very open about what she likes and she doesn't like. She doesn't hold back if she doesn't like something. If there's a date night where I'm trying to cook, I can typically tell if it was good or bad because the question will be, "What'd you do with this? What'd you put in here?" That means she doesn't like it. If she likes it, it's nothing. It's like, wow, this is good.
It's
But if she starts to ask what I put in it,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So Justin does something similar, except for he goes, how would you make this differently next time?
Is that what I said?
Yes.
Is that what I said?
it's so
Tonight,
gracious.
So
literally
kind.
tonight, you're like, so next time, maybe we
So
could.
I might have offered some suggestions of how to
So I feel
enhance
you,
the palate.
Aaron.
No, it
I
was
feel
Yes,
you.
it's the
Absolutely.
compliment sandwich. You
Yeah.
start with
Absolutely.
like, I really admire and appreciate this aspect of it. And then what do you think if we did this maybe a little bit differently?
Sure.
And then, but thank you so much for cooking. You gotta
Yeah.
get the compliment sandwich in there.
I think I only
I
got
think
one piece
she'll
of
be like,
bread tonight.
She only hears the meat part though.
Anyway, no, that's great. Hey, I mean, it's better that than you find out 5 years from now that she didn't like something.
Right, or like you the
No,
Yeah.
not this one. I'm gonna know immediately.
That's awesome. Something Janay told me that you guys had done on your dates is take personality assessments. And like, because you guys are similar to us, where you have a pretty extreme introvert and a pretty extreme extrovert. And so,
Yeah.
Who's the extrovert?
Aaron would be that for sure.
no.
He doesn't feel that. He tests extrovert more so than I do
Okay.
every time. But he's in denial, and it's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's
We have
okay.
space. It's okay. It's not a bad thing.
No.
It's not
I
a
was
bad
an
thing.
introvert in denial.
Yeah.
Like I grew up where you kind of had to be an extrovert.
Mhm.
And then I
Yeah.
found later in life that like, man, I'm just exhausted all the time from interacting
Yeah,
with
same.
people.
Yeah.
And then being
Yep.
like,
Same.
wow, this introvert thing is great. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
But that was a shock to me our first year of marriage.
Yeah,
Because I
that-
thought
that-
I had married an extrovert and I wanted to marry an extrovert. But now I'm okay now.
I'd say it's more like ambivert. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously our culture like defines it as these two extremes of extrovert
Yeah.
and
That's right. And
introvert, but
there's
it's like that people are
spectrum.
in a very wide range within
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
But
That's
But
right.
has the personality assessments helped you like learn how to communicate better, learn like how to love each other better? Or was that just like a fun thing to do?
Somewhat. I feel like one of the things that, and with me being a learner,
Yeah.
I would just say, hey, Aaron, let's try this test this week and let's do this test this week. And it's because I, for whatever reason, couldn't wrap my brain around why we were so different or how we were so different. And so
Sure.
I wanted a better understanding. And there are things that I needed to be aware of so that I can, that self-awareness piece to like communicate better so that I can show up for my marriage better. And even if there's something that Aaron couldn't possibly put language to, like with the results on whatever personality test or assessment, it helped me to better understand what he would not necessarily be able to communicate.
Absolutely.
And then I feel like once we really understand the differences in our personalities, it really did help us to embrace the fact that we're different, right?
Mhm.
And just know it didn't fix or resolve everything. It just helped us to see like, okay, we are different. Like we're different. But I just personally believe that unity, honestly, that oneness can't be pursued if we're the same because we're the same,
that's good.
right?
Wow.
And so in pursuit of unity and in pursuit of oneness, you have to respect the individual differences so that you
Yeah.
can actually see when you're growing together and when you're sacrificing for one another for the sake of peace and for the sake of unity. This isn't like this person, and I know that about them. I know them intimately. And the fact that they're coming along for the ride, it shows that they are here for something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
And so I think once we just slow down and respect differences, right? And we respect those personalities that are different in marriages, we really get to celebrate when we're winning because we know both of us we have skin in the game. Because he wouldn't have chosen to do it this way, and I wouldn't have chose it this way. But it just gives us a point of connection, honestly.
Yeah.
It doesn't solve everything. It's fun to take and to know about one another, but it helps us celebrate small wins.
Yeah.
I love that.
No, that's a great point about differences, because that applies in so many other fields as well. Like Aaron,
Mhm.
I'm sure you see this from a business perspective, where you need to build a team where not every single person is going to have the exact same same set of
You don't want
skills
that.
or be able to do all these things. You need people that are going to be able to fill in the gaps of weaknesses for others, you know. There's the great analogy of like the body, and like an arm has a very different function from a leg, but both are very equally important parts of the body, you know. And
That's
so
right.
like all of those things working together, and like you said, Janay, respecting and admiring those differences help those
Yeah.
people, those pieces work together, and same within a marriage. And I do respect your differences,
Oh,
Stephanie.
wow.
You're so different.
I am very different. Thank you. I am okay with that.
In all the best ways.
Yes, it's taken me a little while, but
That I'm free.
yeah. And I respect that you have found what is right for you and your personality and your recharge.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Man,
Absolutely.
like
So important.
Yes, it is. It is. The
Yeah.
recharge is very important, and we are so different in that way.
it's true.
We will hang out with friends, and Justin will be in bed
By
immediately.
8 o'clock.
And I will
Yeah.
be juiced for 2 hours. And that's how we know that there is
Yeah.
a such thing as introvert, extrovert. It's just
Yeah.
literally where the energy comes and goes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But anyway, so what are some ways that you go through to set healthy boundaries?
Boundaries, good question. Yeah.
Boundaries. So you've talked about prioritizing and stuff like that, but what about boundaries, especially for good things like friends, family, and church?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, again, you guys are so busy
Yeah.
too. Like, how do you set those boundaries of what to say yes to and what to say no to?
Yeah, full disclosure, it's fumbling in the dark with that.
Hey, right on.
It's not something we are great at. We're better,
Yeah.
but we've got our head bumped and have been knocked on our tail a couple times. But
Mm.
presently, there's these electronic calendars that you can sync to like your spouse's phone, or obviously, people who work, your email syncs to your phone, that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
Janay has a very unique skill set for those types of things. And so talking to each other about what to put on the calendar, what needs to fall off the calendar, creating white space, and bandwidth, those are words that are important to use. And just to think and come from a place of, we need to be seeing eye to eye. Like, this is the most important thing. And it's not worth me fighting over you because I want to go to my mom's house to have dinner on Sunday and you think we need to rest on Sunday.
Mm.
Like, it's really not worth that. Like, if I'm sure your heart's in the right place and you want what's best for me, my heart's in the right place. I want what's best for us and as a family. And as long as we're believing the best, a lot of these boundaries that come up and the arguments that may ensue, the arguments are getting shorter. And so I guess in short, the most important thing to do from a boundary standpoint, and this is a broken record in soapbox for me, is you got to go back to those values and what are you about? Like, if you don't know what your marriage is about, or what you are about uniquely, you're going to get pulled and thrown and tossed and
Everywhere.
turned every which way, because there's amazing things. There's homeless people that need food. There's illiterate kids that need to be read to. There's family members that live down the street that you need to see. How do you give your best yes?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is you have to, it's obviously spend time with God, but objectively and just common sense is like, there's only so much time I have in a day and a week,
Yeah.
and I have to say no. And where we've gotten to the place now, because we were like full bore for over a decade, just doing the gospel work of saying yes to everything, we now kind of have a rubber stamp no to a lot of things, and then kind of work backwards from there if it's outside of the marriage. So there's things that are being pulled on us. It's like, no, because we've overshot. And so now we're trying to work our way back to make sure that we're continuing to be solid as a family and as a marriage couple and a married couple. But it's elusive and it's difficult,
Yeah.
and you got to have those check-ins. We have check-ins at a minimum once a week.
Okay.
We're trying to set a cadence of checking in, like 20 minutes a day with each other.
Good.
That's newer cadence we're trying to set, but once a week we may have a little more extended, maybe 30, 45 kind of check-in if we need that. And even that's elusive because,
Mhm.
the schedule kind of gets away from us. But at least we have a foundation of what we know we need to get back to.
Mm.
Mm.
Love that.
Yeah. So that was good. That was, I can see how we balance each other for sure. I'm the one that will, like, I fight for white space and petition for rest. And um, for me, because that's important, it helps me to understand that when I think about boundaries, I don't see them in a negative sense. Like, I
Mm.
see boundaries as something that allows me to fully do what I'm called to do, if
Right.
that makes sense.
That's
Oh, yeah.
great.
And
Yeah.
so, when I think about boundaries, I understand because I'm called to this way of living, or because I'm called to, or because I have a value of family in my marriage, and I value, using my gifts at church. And
Mhm.
because of my values, I have to set a boundary so that I can responsibly steward what I'm called to do.
Mm.
And so that's how I look at it. And so when I'm actually taking time to rest, or if we need to go on a trip or a vacation, or we need time away as a couple, away from the kids, there really is no mommy guilt, because I
Good.
realize that as I allow myself to be filled, and as I'm pouring my first into my husband, well, second into our marriage, first with the Lord, and
Yeah.
allowing
Mhm.
him to, fill me, and then pouring that into my marriage and my children and our church and our community, get what's left of that. And so boundaries are actually a blessing.
Mm.
Through boundaries, I've been humbled in realizing my humanity. Like, we like to
Mm.
think that, from the lights to coffee to everything you could possibly think of, makes us feel like we just can go, 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 go.
Sure.
And we can't. We actually need to embrace the fact that we're human, and
Mhm.
rest and be okay with that. And from that place, pour into wherever we're called to, or whatever we have a passion for. So,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
good.
That's so good. That's something that we had to talk
Mhm.
through and still try to find that balance, especially as more of an extrovert and an introvert, the difference between like relationship and being
Mhm,
like the importance of relationships and hanging out with people and doing all that kind of stuff. And then for me,
mhm,
I'm like you, Janae, where it's like that rest, a big advocate of rest and white noise.
mhm,
And so there would
mhm.
be
White
times where it's
space.
like,
White, white
well,
noise too.
white
And
noise
white
too.
space. I mean,
White noise
come on.
in that white
It's time,
space.
time for bed. Cut that machine on. Let's
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
7:59.
Yeah.
But like that would be a conversation
Yeah.
that we would have multiple times
Mhm.
of like, well, you need to hang out with more people. Well, you need to have more time away from people to rest. And
Yeah.
there was a book that I read last year, a couple of years
Mhm.
ago, called How's Your Soul? And it kind of talks about the importance of like examining your spiritual health and physical health,
Yeah.
mental health, all that.
Mhm.
And from the book of Genesis, the Garden of Eden, and
Mhm.
kind of like what a perfect world looked like and what were some of the components of that. And it was really interesting because like there were four like big pieces that he pulled out of that. One was like the importance of rest, first of all, that it was
Starting.
like this beautiful paradise that they could really be refreshed and rejuvenated in.
Yeah.
And then
That's
two
right.
was responsibility. Like work was not a result of,
Aw.
what we see as the curse or sin or Satan or anything like that. Like they had a task that they were given, and that's just a very good practical thing, like to have responsibility, to have a task, to have a purpose, to do something. And then the third thing was relationship, like the fact that they had relationship with each other, and in
Yeah.
addition to the relationship that they had with God. And then the fourth thing that I thought was a very interesting component was like restriction, and the fact that God made a
Okay.
tree in the garden that they couldn't eat. And so even
Yeah.
in this perfect world, there was a boundary, there was a
That's right.
restriction, and how that was
Mhm.
actually very good for them. And so
Yep.
exactly like you said, like boundaries are actually a wonderful thing and can
That's
be a
right.
wonderful thing. It's like you were saying, Aaron, like knowing what your purpose is, what your goal
Yeah.
is, and what are you
Yeah.
trying to accomplish through that. So let me ask you guys this: for a person or someone who feels like their priorities are out of whack, they have a hard time setting boundaries, where would you encourage them to kind of begin in their journey to finding that balance, to finding healthy priorities in their life?
Yeah. Well, if they're an adult and they haven't gotten to that point yet, you're gonna need help. You're gonna need community.
Mm.
You're gonna need, be able to potentially listen to your spouse if you haven't listened to them before and they've been trying to cue you in on that. But if you're not married, then friends or a mentor. We all
Family.
need someone to be able to speak into our lives who's 10, 15 years our senior.
Mhm.
And so you're going to need that help. You can start it on your own while you're in the process of finding that help or getting that help, and just being able to connect with your value set. I'm a big fan finding those two or three values that speak to you. And there's all kinds of things on the internet, tests that you can take, different algorithms you can fill out to find what values kind of speak to you more so than anything else.
Yeah.
And from those one or two letter values, one or two letter word values, you're able to start to create a mission statement of sorts for yourself or for the marriage. And then as you start to kind of build this foundation, you scaffold to much higher heights of being able to find out what your priorities are. Because, the example is always, like said before, if you have $50 and, there's a homeless shelter that needs $50 to help with their nonprofit, and there's, kids that can't read, there's a nonprofit, they need $50. And who do you give your money to?
Mm.
Some people say you'll give 25 here and 25 there.
Mm.
Well, that's not the ask. They need 50 from you. And so that's kind of why we live in such a broken world is, one or two things. People just don't have a priority to do anything,
Yeah.
or they're splitting themselves and dividing themselves up so much, they're not being of any benefit to anybody.
Wow.
If everyone just holds tight to their thing and does it at a high level, the world will be a much better place. But that's
Mhm.
not what happens. And so as start to find out your priorities and your values, you're able to now make those decisions and align your thinking that's going to make those decisions, that's going to essentially get you to a place where God wants you to be for
Mhm.
those that are believers. And even those that are not believers, chances are, if you're still lining yourself with good thoughts, God's still in that work somehow,
Mm.
and He's still going to be the author of that story
Yeah.
when it's all said and done.
That's good.
Mm.
Man, that's really good. That was so clear. Thank you, Aaron, for
Absolutely.
making that so concise and doable, I think.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get paralyzed by their own fear of where to
Mhm.
start,
Yeah.
or wow, I've already blown it, or my parents modeled a broken whatever,
Mhm.
And so when
Absolutely.
you say, just go find what your values, just write your
Yeah.
mission statement, align yourself, get a mentor, get community, like those are doable things, not all at once, one step at a time. And you
Yep.
could
Yeah.
start on the internet if that's where you need to go, but
Yeah, absolutely.
eventually you need to put yourself out there
Yeah.
and start talking to somebody to make sure that you're not,
Yeah.
going a little haywire.
The
But
importance of community.
yeah, I really
Yeah.
love that. And I know that's something that you guys make very real in your lives as community, and you model that for your kids, which I think is huge. Um, and I wanted to say that you talk about putting yourself and then your marriage first and then your kids. And I feel like that's something that our culture doesn't get. And I can just see the comments now because I've seen them before where they're like, "Oh, those poor kids, oh, they're put in third place." Your kids are freaking loved. Like your
Yeah.
kids get
That's
both parents
Right.
in their
Yeah.
Yeah.
schooling. I've seen you,
Yeah.
Aaron, throw a ball with little Aaron like all the time. And the girls are so, so loved. And Janay, you do such a great job at modeling what grace and honor looks like.
Well, you guys,
Yeah.
again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like you have more capacity
Hmm.
to love your kids even more, like when you're a unit and you're on the same team and you're
Yeah.
like working together,
Yeah.
as opposed to like just two kind of very intelligent, capable, great
Yeah.
people individually, but by
Mm.
like with your powers combined,
Yeah.
you can almost help them even more and minister to them even more in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, broken societies come from broken adults that come from broken families, and
Mhm.
so if we can stick together and model it, our kids have to make their own decisions, but at least we know that we've given them a foundation and even experience with the Lord to be able to stay tethered to, and it's up to them
That's
to
right.
cut that tether or go a little bit out, but still be tethered to come back in.
Yeah.
And that's just what we try to do. It's not perfect, and
Right.
Janae spoke about mom guilt before and not having it. I mean, it's a thing. I mean, kids
Yeah.
are kids. Kids are amazing gifts, and we love them. But we will literally wake up at 8, spend jumping on a trampoline, in the morning, eating breakfast with them, playing video games, have a family night. It's 7 p.m. You guys go to bed. Now they want more time. It's like, well,
Yeah.
no, no, we're done.
Yeah.
Like we spent all day with you. There's no more questions. There's no more can I.
I'm thirsty.
We're done. Like we
Classic.
have a marriage and we are people. You
Yeah.
guys have had your time.
Yeah.
Please go away and don't knock it. We don't feel bad about
Yeah.
that because we know we have spent that time, and we're not going to let kids who are not trying to but bombard us or just not understand that, oh, like I have to pull up and pull back sometimes. If you don't, the kids will just keep coming because you let them.
Yeah. I loved what you said, Aaron, earlier about making the argument shorter. Like that should be all of our goals, right? Not a
yeah.
non-existent argument, because then we wouldn't be seeing the beauties of two broken but different people coming together, but shorter. And
Yeah.
how have you seen tools that have made your arguments shorter that have helped in that? And I think we've touched on things, having
that's a
those
good question.
meetings, having those boundaries, having the calendar, but are there any other tips to making a shorter argument?
For me, I would say that I've had to learn that you're going to have conflict in any relationship,
Yeah.
right? I think when I know some friends of mine that have come up in homes where there was no conflict, but we know there was. We know now as adults that the conflict was just handled behind the scenes, right? So for me, I like to understand, okay, conflict is going to happen from here until the end of time.
Yeah.
Example, I'm with the kids Monday through Friday. Aaron's working Monday through Friday. I'm like, hey, on the weekends, Aaron's like, it's family time. I'm like, it's mommy's quiet time. Like, what do we have? We have conflict now, right?
Yeah.
We see that, he wants to be home with his family and have those shared memories and experiences. And I feel like I've been in nothing but mom mode all week. So come weekend, I'm like, can they have daddy camping weekend or something? Like, just kind of trying to find things. And so realizing that conflict is going to come in any relationship, that's like 90% of the battle when it comes to making the argument shorter. It's not being alarmed by the fact that there's conflict. Like, oh, that's normal. Like, we are 5 different people with 5 different personalities, and everybody's going to want to do something different. So how can we resolve this in a way that shows honor to one another, right? How can we resolve this in a way that doesn't disrupt the unity in the home and the peace that we work to cultivate in our family? And so a lot of it just comes from, and I know this sounds weird because in our home, we don't get to say like, that's not fair, but to the best of our ability, like if it's a weekend and like for instance, this weekend, I think it was our son's turn to pick what we did for family time. And we just take turns. It goes back to everything you learned in kindergarten, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, whose turn is it? Like who gets to pick the activity that we're a part of? How can we all lean into what's so important to this person? For me, if I got to pick family night, we're probably doing something that's super chill, super low maintenance. Like we're all in the living room with different books reading, or we're watching a movie together, or something that doesn't involve a lot of just like motion and activity.
Like hide and seek, where all the kids go hide and you're the person who seeks, but
we seek them when we feel like it. So arguments are shorter when we embrace the fact that arguing isn't bad, right? There's a difference between arguing and fighting. We don't want fights, right? We don't want to attack one another. We don't want to tear one another down. We don't want to be a source of like contention or discouragement for someone in our home. We want to argue well. So what's your point? And what are your reasons for coming to that point? And can you intelligibly communicate that point?
Mm.
And can I sit and listen in that moment? And is this a time where I'm just here to listen to this point and your reasoning? Or is this a time where I actually need to speak up and say, hey, here's my point and here's my, like, it doesn't always have to be an argument. Sometimes it's an opportunity to listen
Yeah.
and validate. And so a lot of the quick arguments come from really being self-aware. Do I need to listen? How can I give the
Right.
advantage? How can I put this person first? How can I not be right and just pursue unity, you know? So
Yeah.
Yeah, groundbreaking for me, and it will be for any husband or any man who feels like they're being called to the ministry of marriage, is just listening to Janay. When a lot of our arguments, I feel, have gotten shorter, and that's now the rhythm. It's because I have really, through just getting my head beat in from just making mistakes from my own just trying to fix things or just trying to move past things. But just listening to Janay, and from listening to Janay, I'm able to hear how much he sacrifices for me. Like, there is no other woman in this world that has sacrificed and will sacrifice so much for me. And even when there's things that she's doing that I feel like are just wrong or bad or just shouldn't happen, I've learned to kind of put it through a lens of, is she possibly trying to do this in a weird, sick, demented way to help me? Um, it takes time,
Yeah.
because it's easy to just to jump because you said you never do it again and you're doing it again, and just like, oh, here we go. But to just take time and be put in remembrance of, this is the young lady and the woman who did XYZ for me. This is the who committed to do this, and she's going to see that through. And so from that place of gratitude, I really try to get to a place with her of understanding and asking good questions. And Janae's very unique and she's very expressive. And I have to oftentimes have to sift through some of her delivery, as I'm sure she has to do for me, to get through, hey, whoa, okay, something's different here. Let's calm down, or maybe we need to take 5 minutes, and not me get offended and lash out. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I clap back, absolutely.
Sure.
But I've gotten better about noticing that she's a little unfringed, and I think she's noticed with me, like, he's a little unhinged. And so that's not a personal attack against me, even though my name's attached to the attack. I can see that that's not who my spouse is.
Mm.
And then from that place of listening to her and coming from her heart, it makes it easier for her to receive my leadership and, for a better lack of terms, corrective action back to what we said we were about. When it's her. It goes the same way for me. It's not a one-way street. Like, she
Right.
can bring me
Sure.
back to what we said that we were about, in the one document, or our values, like, hey, we don't do that, or we don't make decisions like that, or help me understand, how does this align
Yeah.
with where we're trying to go, especially for like bigger decisions. Smaller decisions, like, do you want to go to, this taco place, that taco place? That could be a bit of a powder keg in
Those are
and of itself.
huge decisions.
Listen, with this
Let's
one,
not minimize the taco place
with
question.
this one, it is a full on. I'm not talking to you the whole ride home. Like, I kid you not. So I'm not minimizing that. Like,
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
that has happened before. But with that, just echoing what Janay said, just the listening and being able just to understand, is this moment also being able to give honor and respect to your spouse as a person,
Mm. Sure.
as asking, is this a good time for me to share something, as opposed to coming in hot, doors open, nah, 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 nah. It's like,
Right.
whoa, you pretty much just ruined any opportunity for this conversation to go well. I mean, there's
Wow.
plenty of research that says the first 1.2 seconds determines how the rest of the conversation goes, the tone, the heart behind it. So if you come in hot,
It's good.
you as an individual have set that conversation to be an argument, as opposed to you coming in asking, hey, is this a good time? Let me know when a good time is, and keeping it slow. When we have those kind of exchanges, those arguments or conversations go by really quick.
Mm.
Wow.
So
That's
good.
so good. We had an argument the other day, and it was getting heated, and it was building, and I think we both were kind of like, why is this building? Why is going on?
Right.
And Justin had the clarity of mind. I had said something like, I just care so much about this, or something like that. And Justin goes, well, I care. and you
No, I said
care.
I'm trying.
Oh yeah, you said I'm trying.
It's like we were like having a hard time seeing the other person's viewpoint, and it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
getting, like she said, building frustration.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm trying, I'm really trying. And you look back and you're like, I'm trying too. And that really helped us in that moment to be
Yeah.
like, okay,
Great.
yeah, we're on the same team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can,
Yeah.
we'll figure this out. We'll
Mhm.
work through this because we both are coming with the attitude of wanting to make it better
Yeah.
and work through it.
Yeah. And I think that's something that ever since then has been a huge help.
That's been helpful,
because
yeah.
It has. Because I think that sometimes we believe lies about, I mean, we've been together 13 years and you guys have been together for a while, you know, and it's like, why in this moment am I thinking such horrible things that he has never done, but I am choosing to believe that instead of rebooting and rethinking through that and saying, no, I love this person, I respect this person. And like you guys were saying, I'm going to listen and not just react. And I think that's
Yeah.
so good.
We've said it well in the past that like your spouse has the potential to be the person that you have the greatest like love and intimacy with, and the person that you like hate the most in the world in that moment, because they
Absolutely.
know everything about you and you know everything about them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're just two human beings who have emotions, both good and bad, and sometimes we're just not in a good place in that moment. But
Yeah.
that's so interesting, Aaron, what you're saying about, because I think that's exactly right. Within that first moment of a conversation,
Yeah.
the attitude and the energy and the spirit and the tone and all that stuff that you come to that conversation with sets the stage for so many other factors of how that conversation is going to go.
Yeah.
So with all this in mind, guys, let me ask you this. What does it mean to you to intentionally thrive in your life? What does that look like in your guys' lives?
When I take time to care for my soul, it makes the world of a difference. I have to sit and process. So not only am I like introverted and re-energized from being alone, I'm also an internal processor. I like to process things alone first. And so, when the world is bombarding me with their thoughts and opinions, and you have social media and you have television and music and just everything's loud, or people are asking, sometimes Aaron asks like, what's wrong? Or do you want to just different questions like, can you answer this question? Well, I can't answer that right now. Like I have to sit down and actually care for my soul and know, well, how did that get in there? What's that about? Why do I feel this way? When I have those moments, and I have to have them daily, and I realize now, like in this season, it's like at least 2 hours a day where I just have to sit and journal and reflect, or pray, or listen to music that pours into me and gives me a piece of knowing that I'm going through this life, right? It's something that I'm engaged in, but you don't want those sticky things sticking to you that don't belong there forever. And if we never slow down and we never take time to do that, we can't thrive, right? We start to go in each moment, we show up with everything that's still there that we haven't dealt with. And so for me, I have to, in order for me to intentionally thrive, I need to sit down and just care for my soul. Yeah.
That's good. Did it take
Absolutely.
time to learn that? Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. It did. Because there was just all these pieces, with homeschooling and being married and like serving at church and being in my community. I'm also helping with different things that are in the community that are not necessarily related to the church. And so all these different pieces, and pouring yourself out constantly over and over again. And what's important to you, your values, you have all this stuff, but then it's like, okay, wait a minute. Whoa. Over time, I started to realize, well, I never dealt with the fact that when that person said that to me, and I chose to show love in that moment, I never went and processed what that really did to me. And so now going into this meeting over here, this person's speaking to me this way, and now I'm bringing that back into, and so over time I started to realize, like, I have not sat down and really process the things that are taking place as I'm doing, right? I need
Right.
to be, and I can't be if I'm not really sitting and dealing with this stuff and creating a safe space for myself to
Mm-hmm.
be. And so, but I love that. I love being able to do that because that's what I bring to my relationships. It's what I bring to my children. It's what I teach my children. And even when Aaron's going through things, I'm like, hey, have you thought about it? Do you know why this is the way that it is? Like, to me, there's always a why,
Mm.
which makes it hard when there really isn't a why.
Yeah.
But there's a why. And if you just sit down and you take time, then you really can thrive and grow and be that lifelong learner because you're not carrying the weight of everything that's ever been said or done to you
Yeah.
or that you've experienced in life. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's so good.
So good.
Aaron, how about for you?
Yeah, my measure as just an umbrella and kind of a life's mission is how well am I doing with connecting individual adults with their God-given ability to live life without limitations.
Wow.
And so that drills down on multiple different levels in different walks of life that I have. But here maritally, it's how well am I, loving Janae? How well are we coming together on our friendships? How well are we doing with our goals that we set quarterly or for the year? Kids, same thing. How well are we doing with trying to accomplish the time that I need to spend with each individual child, or what are we doing as a family? And then there's the community, and the helps ministry that we take part in on different levels as well. But I guess in short is I measure my ability to intentionally thrive based off of setting my gaze onto something that's going to benefit someone else, and how well am I moving towards that goal and mission healthily as an individual without taking shortcuts or beating myself up in the process, because you can help someone and damage yourself severely in the
Mhm.
process.
Yeah.
And so that's a delicate balance, at least for me, because I can work 60 hours a week and help a lot of people. But is that the best thing to do for a lifetime? No. And so I have to find that balance and embrace my humanity to be able to thrive for longevity and not be short-sighted.
Yeah.
And so I try to be as intentional as I can with, like, starting on Sunday, looking at what I want to accomplish for the week, and then obviously can roll that out for a month, for a quarter, for the year, and things of that nature, and celebrating those wins that I did accomplish.
Right.
I'm having, obviously people like Janae to check in with how am I doing, other community, other men, other mentors or would-be mentors that I may have, to be able to speak into or be able to report back to, this is how I'm doing. And so that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah.
So good.
Thank you guys so
Awesome.
much
Thank you.
for coming on today, being on the Intentional Thriver. So much that we learned
Yeah.
and are now
So
going to go back
much.
and process. So
Yes.
we'll process
Absolutely.
about processing. So thank you for that, Janae.
Yes.
That's going to be its own thing.
It
No,
is.
but thank you again, guys, so much. We love you. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
And we'll
Absolutely.
for sure have you back on again at some point to talk about a plethora of different things.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Plethora.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Love it.